Hey, and welcome back to another video. So in this video, we'll be taking a look at the Nokia N9 from 2011 and answering the question of whether it's still a usable phone here in 2021. Now, the Nokia N9, like I said, was released in 2011. It is known as the world's only production mobile device to ever run MeeGo Harmattan, the operating system called MeeGo Harmattan. It's a Linux-based operating system, and I say the only production device because there was the Nokia N950, which was a developer-only variant of the Nokia N9. Well, I wouldn't call it a variant, I'd call it a phone on its own, because the N950 and the N9 are quite different. Like, for example, the N950 has an LCD display, the N9 has an AMOLED, the N950 is a slider, the N9 is just a slab. But the N950 was a developer-only phone, and only 5,000 units were ever produced, and they were sent off to developers. The N9 was the only one available to the public that you could purchase. And today we're going to take a look at this phone and see what it's like using it here in 2021. First of all, I got to point out that the Nokia N9 is quite a rare phone, and when you do get them on eBay or wherever, they're quite pricey. There are a lot of refurbished ones from China, but like the fact that they've been refurbished, and some of them don't even run MeeGo anymore, they've been flashed with other Linux-based operating systems. And I don't think it's a great idea getting them from China. The refurbishing jobs are not usually the best. So if you do find one used on eBay for a decent price, and decent I mean maybe about $60 to $100, go for it, because usually they go for above $100. I got this one for $46 because I got lucky, but apart from that, they're still quite pricey on eBay. So let's have a quick go around of the Nokia N9 itself. So the front is pretty minimalist, as you can see. It's got a really minimalist design actually. Nokia logo up the top. We have the speaker grill up there. The camera is in this weird position down here, as you can see there. So it's not anywhere there or not. The front camera is down here. I think it's one of the only few phones to have the front camera down there. There's a Sharp phone, the Sharp Aquos Crystal. It also has a chin at the bottom, and the camera is down there. There's a couple of other Sharp phones that have their camera down there as well. That's the front, pretty minimalist. We got the side of the phone. We got the power button and volume rocker. So power button and volume rockers on the right side of the phone. The rear of the phone, we got the camera and the stainless steel strip with the Nokia branding, Carl Zeiss Tessa branding as well, and the dual LED flash. On the left side of the phone, there's nothing much, it's just blank. At the top of the phone, we have a spring-loaded latch which hides the micro USB connector, and the other spring-loaded latch itself is the SIM card tray. The 3.5mm headphone jack is towards the right here, and at the bottom we have the bottom firing speaker and nothing else. So pretty minimalist at the bottom as well. So that was a quick go around of the Nokia N9, its general layout and form factor. Fun fact, the Nokia Lumia 800, which is Nokia's first ever Windows phone, and the Nokia N9 share a lot of similarities. Let's start with the back. As you can see, the stainless steel cutout here, it's exactly the same. The flash placement is also different. However, the cameras are exactly the same. Same specs, same cameras, same everything. So the N9 and the Lumia 800 have the same camera. It's just the dual LED flash on both. The placement is different. On this side, the button layout up top here is the same, but the Nokia N9 has no dedicated camera button. The top is exactly the same, as you can see, the latches and the 3.5mm headphone jack. The bottom is also exactly the same bottom firing speakers. It's the front that has the most visible difference. The 800 has the touch buttons with the Windows button and the back button, search button down here. The N9 doesn't have any of that. It has the camera down here. The 800 has no front-facing camera, And the top, the Nokia logo on the N9 is slightly more shiny than on the Lumia 800, but the speaker and everything is the same. They're the same dimension, same height, same width, same thickness, same length, whatever. It's just the 800 is considerably more heavier than the N9. They also have AMOLED displays, but the N9 has a 3.9-inch AMOLED display, and the 800 has a 3.7-inch AMOLED display. And like I said, the 800 does not have a camera. You can actually use the case from the 800 on the N9. You're just not going to have the cut. You're going to have an extra cutout for the dedicated camera button, and then the flash is going to be covered on the N9, but you still can use the same case and vice versa. This is another 800 that I have. You may have already seen it on my channel, and this one as well. But apart from that, in form factor and general design, they're almost identical, apart from obviously the N9 runs MeeGo and the 800 runs Windows. So let's power this thing on. When you press the button even slightly, the power button, even before turning it on, you can see there's a light here. The notification light kind of sets off to show you that there's power in the phone. You can check if the phone is charged, I guess, using that. But when you press and hold it, it does turn on. The Nokia logo is kind of different. It's a darker Nokia logo. It's not as bright as what you would find on other phones. Again, this thing is running Harmattan, so everything is going to be different. It's not running Symbian. Let's just wait till this powers on. Okay, so the phone has powered on, as you can see. And when turning it off as well, you don't get like a turn off screen like an Android or iOS. You don't get a turn off screen. When you want to turn it off, you just hold the power button down, the light blinks, and it just turns off. So I'd say that's kind of bad design. You should have the ability to select whether to turn it off or just restart it or something, but this phone doesn't allow you to do that. You have to restart it using a button combo, but that's just how Harmattan handles powering off the phone. I also almost forgot to mention the Nokia N9 came in 4 colors, which included this black. It also came in cyan, magenta, and a really nice glossy white. So now let's discuss the display on the Nokia N9. The N9's display is a 3.9-inch AMOLED display with a resolution of 480 by 854 pixels and a 16 by 9 aspect ratio, which gives it a pixel density of around 451 pixels per inch and a screen to body ratio of around 58.8. It has Corning Gorilla Glass of an unknown model that protects the screen, obviously. It could be Gorilla Glass 1 or it could be Gorilla Glass 2. I'm not sure. I can't confirm. Again, it's a AMOLED display, so the darks are going to be rich and the colors are going to pop, and that's what exactly is what I experienced while using this display for a week. The colors are really bright, the darks are really dark. And I'm really surprised for a phone display from 10 years ago, the AMOLED is holding up really well. The display does not have image burn at all. As with a lot of Nokia AMOLEDs, they last longer than other brands. So the display is holding up really well after all this time. No image burn at all. When you look in closely, you can see some of the pixels, but that's kind of obvious with such a low pixel density. But for its time, that pixel density was just perfect. Again, a really good display, works really well. The sunlight performance could be a bit better, but I'm okay with it. But indoors, it looks just perfect. It's a really good display. It's perfectly usable for 2021. I just wish it was slightly bigger than 3.9 inches because I'm used to larger displays like on the iPhone 12 Pro Max. But apart from that, it's a really solid display that will work just well in 2021. So now moving on to operating system. Like I mentioned earlier, the Nokia N9 is the only production and publicly available phone to run the Linux-based operating system, MeeGo 1.2 Harmattan. MeeGo is a single-hand use focused operating system. As you can see here, I can use my thumb to do everything on the phone. Everything is within reach as ease. We have the notifications towards this side. As you can see, this is all the notifications when you pull towards the right like that. Up top, we have the quick settings and Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and profile switcher. Towards the left, when you pull like that, you have the multitasking. You can press and hold to close your apps, or you can close all at once. At the bottom, we have our app switcher when we are in an app. So let me open a couple of apps here. Let's open settings. And we can push up like that to leave the app. But we can also do this to leave the app. So we have two ways of leaving an app. So notes, and do like that, and you can hold like that, and you get your app switcher like that. So that is single hand navigation in MeeGo. The app situation for the Nokia N9 here in 2021 is not too great, as the App Store obviously doesn't work anymore. They've taken down the servers. So the only way you can install apps is by plugging it to a PC and copying apps off the internet onto the internal storage. And then you have to go to settings, you scroll down to applications, installations, and you have to allow installations from non-store sources, which allows the phone to install apps off the memory, the internal memory, or the apps you've copied from the computer. So once you've done that, you've installed the apps. They're called DEB files. So those are Linux files. DEB files are called Linux files. They're basically Linux installation files, and again, .deb. So once you've done copying the DEB app files to your phone, you go into search, or if you already have a file manager installed, you can use that. You search for the application. So I have the front camera application, so it's already there. This application is to use the front camera, because the front camera, and I'll show you in a bit, the front camera cannot be accessed through the main camera app, which is strange. But it is what it is. So the only way to use the front camera was with an app called the front camera app, and I'm going to try and install it. There are two versions of it. Both don't work, because after such a long time trying to install these apps without the certifications and stuff, it always fails. So it will say installing and then failed. So yeah, this app situation is quite bad. The same goes for developer mode, because developer mode on this thing is an application. So you can go and try and install developer mode, and it goes to a download screen, and the developer mode app download fails. So then you have to copy it to your through your computer, and then again that issue comes up because the licensing and the certificates are all missing, or they're damaged and stuff. So there aren't many files online available either, especially with this front camera app thing. So I won't be able to use the front camera on this phone until I get this sorted out, but it's still a problem. It cannot be used. The app situation is quite bad. A couple of games might install, and there might be partial installations like this. As you can see here, there's a partial installation. That's with the exclamation mark. But these apps, the Galaxy on Fire 2, NFS Shift, Angry Birds and stuff, these are already pre-installed on this phone from the previous owner. But if you try to install new apps, you're going to run into a lot of problems. But I'm pretty sure I can try in the future for some apps. But the main thing I wanted to install was the camera app for the front camera. But as you can see, I could not install that. Using social media on the Nokia N9 here in 2021 is also near to impossible, because the apps don't work, Facebook doesn't work, Twitter doesn't work, YouTube doesn't work. The only way you can think of even coming close to using social media is with a web browser. YouTube does not load. Let me load it here and show you. YouTube does not load at all. It loads up till there, and then it kind of fails because all the licensing's expired, the certificates are expired, everything is expired. Same goes for Twitter. Let's do Twitter. All the licensing and stuff is long gone. This was 10 years ago, so what do you expect? Twitter is not working. Now, Facebook's a different story. The app won't let you log in. However, if you use the browser, it lets you log in, and it's obviously not a great experience, but it still lets you log in. I logged in using my fake account, and it does work. So if you want to use Facebook, you can use it, but apart from that, whatever. You can search Google pretty easily. So let's search for Apple. Let's just search Apple Let's not go to their website. Let's just do a quick Google search for Apple. As you can see, it searches just fine. So if you just want to search for something quick, you can use it. The search works just fine. But when you go to load heavy websites like Apple's website, it takes ages to load, and the pictures, the images and stuff don't load really. They don't load at all, but even if they did, they'll take ages to load, and it just depends on your Wi-Fi and stuff. So as you can see, it loaded somewhat. Sometimes pictures like that would load, but heavier websites like this are almost impossible to use. So the browsing experience is so-so. Again, this is a 10-year-old phone. You really can't expect much. Gaming on the N9, like I said, you can probably install some games off your computer onto this phone. I'm just going to be playing the built-in NFS Shift. I'm not sure if this shipped with the phone or this was the previous owner who installed these. I can't be sure. But as you can see, the game will start running fine. It works fine. If you don't want to see the gameplay demo that I'm going to do, you can skip to the card and the time above. Well, not the card, the time that I've put above there. You can skip to that if you don't want to see the gameplay. So as you can see, I'm driving this car. Let's increase the volume a bit. It works just fine, I guess. Is there a way I can change the... No, this is the tutorial, so... So that's to... Like, kind of mixed up the controls. Are those the brakes? Yeah, it's auto acceleration and the brakes, okay. So the accelerometer works as well, as you can see, using it to drive. So apart from the bad browsing experience, the lack of apps and all that stuff, just general scrolling through the interface on MeeGo is really fluid. It's actually quite fast, to be honest, even when I have a lot of apps open in the background. So if not for all those issues, I'd say it's a perfectly usable OS, and I really like the one-handed use thing, like I mentioned earlier. So over the past week when I was using this, the only things that held me down were the browser issues and stuff, and the inability to access all the social media that I want to. But apart from that, you can't really expect much. It's a 10-year-old phone. I'd say it's reasonably usable, provided your expectations aren't too high. Looking under the hood, we can see that the Nokia N9 is powered by a Texas Instruments OMAP 3630, which is a single-core 1 GHz processor. It also has a PowerVR SGX 530 as its GPU. The Nokia N9 shipped with two variations in storage, that is the 16 gig variant and the 64 gig variant, like this one. Each variant had 1 gig of RAM, and it had no SD expansion slot. So if you got the 16 gig variant, you're stuck with that. Or if you got the 64 gig variant, you have no way of expanding. So no card slot, 16 and 64 gigs of storage, 1 gig of RAM, a single core Texas OMAP 3630 clocked in at 1 gigahertz, and a PowerVR graphics card to power the graphics. So pretty decent specs for back in the day. Not the most powerful, not the most, not the worst. However, back in the day, MeeGo probably didn't need that much power. And then the iPhone 4 from the previous year, 2010, only had 512 megs of RAM. So you can see that it's clearly more powerful than the iPhone 4. But then again, it was more than enough for this operating system, and it's more than enough to power it even today. As I said earlier, the interface is smooth, everything is smooth, everything that does run runs fine. The browser, the games, everything runs perfectly fine. Now moving on to the camera on the Nokia N9. The N9's camera is an 8 megapixel autofocus camera with Carl's Zeiss optics and a dual LED flash. It can record video at 720p at 30 FPS, which I'll be using for the camera test that I'll be doing in a few moments. The front camera on this phone, like I said earlier, is pretty strange. You cannot access it via the software. There's no way to access it via the camera app. Let me show you right now. Just go inside the camera app. And as you can see on the main settings here, there's nothing no way to switch to the front camera. You can only switch to video. When you go into settings, again, there's no way to access the front camera. You just have your macro, white balance, night mode, and all the other exposure settings and stuff, which you can change, but you cannot access the front camera at all. Like I said earlier, the only way to access the front camera, it was via a app called Front Camera, but also with certain video calling apps and Skype and stuff like that, the front camera will automatically turn on. However, if you want to use it as a selfie camera, you couldn't use it, which is kind of strange. But then again, Nokia has done that before with the E71 that I covered earlier, the E71 and a couple of other phones as well. So it's not something that Nokia has not done before. It's just quite strange. They could have just let us use the front camera, but it is what it is. And the front camera is a simple VGA camera, nothing too great, nothing too bad either. Now moving back to the camera app, as you can see, there's a bunch of settings here: ISO settings, exposure settings, filter settings, etc, etc. However, to keep this as close to as what the average user would have done, I'm keeping everything on automatic. I know it would be better to change these settings a bit, but the best thing I'd say is keeping it on automatic, so that it could simulate basically what the average user would have done. The only thing I did different was the night mode. During the nighttime photos, which I'll show you at the end, I did select the night mode, so the automatic exposure and stuff is engaged. But during the day, everything was set to automatic, and I did the video and photo samples that you'll be seeing in a moment. So keep in mind, during the night, everything was done on night mode, including the video. So now let's roll the daytime photos, followed by the daytime video, followed by the nighttime photos, followed by the nighttime video. When night mode is turned on, sometimes the phone has trouble focusing on certain images, as you can see with the photo of the sky here. It is also followed up by this photo, which you can see of the car and the lights. It is out of focus, but the moment you switch to the automatic mode, it actually goes back in focus, albeit a bit darker. So as you saw with those photos and videos, the camera is pretty decent, even in 2011 standards. For 2021, it's nothing great, but it's nothing too bad either. The photos were okay, the colors were somewhat accurate. The nighttime with the night mode was actually quite decent, I'd say. But nothing surprising in terms of camera performance there. However, the Nokia N8 had a better camera than the Nokia N9, so it was kind of a downgrade from 2010's Nokia N8 to 2011's Nokia N9. However, the N9 was not focused on photography. The N9 was focused on its operating system and the MeeGo and all the all the stuff that came with the MeeGo operating system, etc., etc. The Nokia N8 was, however, focused on photography, so that's the difference between the two phones. Okay, so now that the camera test is out of the way, we can discuss all the other features on this phone. Let's start with the battery life. So this thing has a 1450 milliamp hour battery. It's a BV5JW. So it's a standard Nokia battery, BV5JW. Initially, it had a 380 hour standby time on 2G and 450 hours standby time on 3G, with 11 hours of talk time on 2G and 7 hours of talk time on 3G. However, at 10 years old, this battery has been used by its previous owner, so it's not up to what it used to be when it was new. So I got about 3/4 of a day out of the battery, about 3/4 of a day roughly out of the battery. The brightness was set to the lowest setting, and again, due to the things that I mentioned earlier, I was limited to what I could do with this phone. I couldn't browse that well. I couldn't do many things on this phone, honestly. It's, again, the battery test is not ideal, but again, we're limited to what we are given here with the software and all that stuff. The battery is internal, it cannot be replaced. And back in the day, the battery life was actually one of the best. It was a really good performer, from what I can say by reading old articles. So it's a so-so battery life here in 2021. So the Nokia N9 also has Dolby's Digital Plus sound compression and playback software. It's built into the, I believe, the audio DAC inside. So Dolby Digital Plus, an older version of Dolby Digital Plus, obviously, digital compression software. So I wasn't initially going to play music off this thing. Didn't really want to, because I had my other phone. I was playing music off that, but I thought, why not? So I put some music on there, plugged in initially a pair of Apple EarPods to the 3.5mm headphone jack, and I was pleasantly surprised to see that this thing actually plays music really well. The sound's great, the loudness is amazing, and it plays really well. So even still at this age, the sound is really, really good, and I'll easily, happily use this as my daily driver for music any day of the week. I also connected it to Bluetooth to the Anker Soundco Q20s via Bluetooth, and it also played really well. And I also plugged them in, and again, it played really well. Speaking of Bluetooth, a lot of photos that I took on this phone for the camera test, I transferred to my PC via Bluetooth, and the transfer speeds were quite fast as well. I didn't really time it, but they were really, really fast, because I do transfer a lot of Bluetooth files from my phones for camera tests to my PC, and this was one of the fastest. I know it's limited by the PC's receiving speed as well, but since I'm using the same PC, I can tell that this phone could transfer Bluetooth files quite fast. The Bluetooth on this phone is an older Bluetooth 2.1, A2DP and EDR, but it still does does the job really fine. Nevertheless, the transfer speeds were really good. Here's a demo of the bottom firing speaker on the Nokia N9. Now, this speaker is not a stereo speaker, so it's just a standard mono speaker. I also, as you saw on YouTube, I could not play any YouTube videos, so I cannot play any of my videos as samples. Because YouTube doesn't load, so I can't really play that as a sample for you as I usually do with my other videos. Neither can I play the music because it's copyrighted, and I don't want to get a copyright issue on my channel. So the next best thing is the built-in tunes that are built into the settings under sound. So I'm going to play some of those now. So we're going to hit max volume, That is the max volume. Let me put that to max. So that is max volume, and so as you can see there, despite not being way too loud, it's actually really clear. Even on max volume, it doesn't crackle and stuff a lot. I know these ringtones are of the highest quality that they could put on the phone, so audio files will vary. But when I was playing music, trust me, they sounded really good as well. The music files also didn't, they were like generally higher bitrate files, and they were really good files off iTunes that I usually that I purchased off iTunes. So the files are really good, and the music is really good. So the speakers hold up really well. Even in 2021, as you heard, they don't crackle even at max volume. So I believe that even they're not stereo speakers, Nokia put a lot of thought into the speakers on this phone. So it's kind of music oriented, I can say, to some extent. So that was the speaker demo for the Nokia N9. So finally, we have come to the end of this video. The Nokia N9 is a really interesting phone from 2011. However, due to issues with it being a unique phone, being the only production phone available to the public that ran MeeGo, its age is also complicated due to its uniqueness, because there's not many apps and stuff to go around. There's a couple of people on XDA that still do stuff for this phone, but it's not a lot. The browser's not great. The apps are really hard to get installed because of that issue. A lot of websites and stuff, like I said, don't open. Apps, even if they do install, they're no longer supported because of licensing and the certificates. So there are a lot of issues with using this phone in 2021. However, it's not impossible to use. You'll just have to reduce your expectations, just like I did when using this phone. You have to remember, this is a 10-year-old phone, and it's the only one of its kind, if not for the N950, which is only available to developers. But I hope to get my hands on one of those phones someday and show it on this channel. The issue is I'll have to just pay a huge amount. The cheapest I've seen those things going on eBay was for $750. Well, for a phone that's quite rare, I'd say that's a reasonable price. But either way, this was the retro sort of review and the throwback to using the Nokia N9 in 2021. If you do have one of these, hold on to them. They're collector's items. They're getting rarer and rarer by the day. Really interesting phone, the only one of its kind from Nokia. A really good attempt at Nokia from trying and promoting a new operating system. Sadly, it wasn't successful, but still, thumbs up to Nokia for trying that. And yeah, that's it for this video, and I hope you enjoyed it as usual. Please leave a thumbs up on this video if you did enjoy the video, and a thumbs down if you didn't, and let me know why down in the comment section below. Also, if you enjoyed it, please consider hitting that subscribe button, as it helps me out a lot. Thumbs up, and I'll see you guys in my next video.